بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. We were talking about some of the Islamic laws, and we finished a section of kafara, and we said that kafara is a penalty that somebody that does not fast has to pay. And we were talking about fidya, and fidya is a compensation for some groups that cannot fast during the month of Ramadan. We said that there's four types or four categories of fidya, people that have to compensate. The first group were elderly people of an old age that cannot fast anymore. Some people that are old, they can still fast. It doesn't harm them or it doesn't cause them extreme difficulty. But some people that they reach an age, it's too difficult for them, they would have to pay the fidya, which is, we said, 1 mud ta'am, which is about 1.7 pounds food items, or about 750 grams food items for each day that is missed. Now, then we talked about people that have an illness, and this illness lasts for 1 year. And say it's an eye disease, it's a kidney disease, and they can't fast for the month of Ramadan, and they can't also make it up after the month of Ramadan is over for 1 year. After that year passes to the next Ramadan, then they can pay their fidya, which we said is about 1.7 pounds, which some of the institutions, they calculated and they take care of it. Some of the organizations is about $5 per day. So 30 days of not fasting times 5 is $150. The third group are women that are pregnant, mothers that are pregnant, and they're divided into two categories. Either their pregnancy is in the advanced stages of pregnancy, or they're in the beginning parts of pregnancy. What we mean by advanced stages of pregnancy, from what I've seen in some of the books, it's about, say, 9 months. They're basically getting ready to deliver. For such a woman that is getting ready to deliver, again, if fasting causes harm for herself or it causes harm for her baby, then they would have to pay the fidya, which is about $5 a day for the month of Ramadan for 30 days. And they would also have to do its qada later on when they can. They would also have to make up their fast. But a woman that's not in the advanced stages of pregnancy, she does not have a fidya. She only has qada. She only makes up her fasting. So this fidya that they say is for a pregnant woman, who is it for? An expecting mother. A mother that is ready to deliver almost her child. So the other stages of pregnancy, they do not have a fidya. They only have qada, and they only have to make up their fast. If there's any questions later on, you can ask me, or inshallah, if there's other members of the community that knows these answers, you can consult them, inshallah. Please give a salawat. The topic that we're talking about in this month, the second half of the month of Ramadan, is a topic that is, I think, very important, and it can be maybe comprehended better, it can be understood better in this month, in the month of Ramadan, which is the concept of knowing who we are and the concept of knowing who God is. Knowing that we are a slave of Allah, and knowing that Allah is our Lord, is our Mawla, is our Lord. And this is a very important concept, and the other term for this is called ubudiyya, which means servitude or being a slave of God. This greatness of Allah, we said that one of the things that a slave does, and one of the things that a servant of Allah does is two things. One is the way they view God. They view God as very, very high, very, very great. And a slave views themselves as somebody very, very low in comparison to Allah. So they have the humility, tawadu, and they have this great azamat that they see in Allah. And this azamat is something that they gain, right? It's something that they gain slowly and slowly. It's not something that they come in the beginning when they're born. A child says, Allah is great, and they're in Arif automatically. It's something that slowly and slowly a person, through the instructions of Allah, and through following what Allah has given, what their Lord and the commanding Lord has given, they say that basically they submit to Allah and they grow. We said that Imam Ali alayhi salam is a demonstration and a display of this greatness of Allah. We talked about that last night. That when we want to see Allah's greatness or azamat, you see it in Imam Ali alayhi salam. So through Imam Ali, you can reach the greatness of Allah, and also the more you see the greatness of Allah, you see the greatness of Imam Ali. There's a relationship between these two, between the relationship between what you see from Imam Ali and also what you see from your Lord. Please give a salawat. Unfortunately, this view that we have of Allah has been downgraded, has been basically belittled. And one of the things that when we look at our du'as and we look at the Quran or the narrations, we see that these narrations and du'as are teaching us something. They're teaching us, when you read these du'as, it's teaching you over and over how great Allah is. What's one of the du'as that we read in the month of Ramadan? What's one of the du'as that we're going to read, inshallah, after the speech is over? Iftitah. When you look at dua iftitah, you see that from the beginning of it, it shows God's greatness in a very beautiful way. I'm going to go through some of the lines. So in this month that we're instructed to read this dua, we're also instructed to learn about the greatness of Allah. And one of the best ways is through the du'as. In dua iftitah it says, Alhamdulillahi Malikil Mulk. You're going to recite this soon. All praise be to Allah, the owner of the kingdom. So Malikil Mulk. So dua iftitah says he is the owner of the kingdom. Mujri al-Fulk, the one who sets the course of skies and stars. When you see the skies, when you see the stars, you see that Allah is setting the course. Right? Why are we reading these? One of the reasons is in this dua, the ma'sumin, the infallibles, want to teach us when you see Allah, look at His greatness. Look at His greatness, see His greatness. Musakhir al-Riyah, He who controls the winds. You see the winds, how powerful they are. Even sometimes in some situations, it can take us and maybe take us in the air and separate us from our homes or where we are, maybe about half a mile in a tornado. So He is Allah that Musakhir al-Riyah, Faliq al-Isbah. When you see Fajr and the sun come out, you see the greatness of Allah and the sun, the creation of Allah, and the sun is coming. Dayanuddin, He who administers the authority, the entire universe is commanded by Allah, every little bit and piece of it. Rabbil Alameen, the Lord of the worlds. So in this dua, when you read dua iftitah, you see the greatness of Allah, and it's a tamreen, it's a training for us over and over. When you read this every night, an abd and a pure servant of Allah sees the greatness of Allah and sees the greatness in His creation. And once he sees the greatness in creation, he becomes humble. The greatness of Allah and His magnificence, in according to our narrations and according to the Quran, will be seen clearly in the Day of Judgment. And we are advised to comprehend and understand this greatness before it's too late. In the Day of Judgment, we'll see the greatness of Allah, but it will be too late for us. In another dua that we read last night, what was the dua that we read last night? One of them, Al-Jawshan Al-Kabir. In Al-Jawshan Al-Kabir, it says, Ya man fis sama'i azamatu. O he whose greatness is in the heavens. His greatness is truly can be apprehended or comprehended in the heavens, not in this world. Ya man fil ardi ayatu. But in this universe, it's His ayat, it's His signs. Allah's signs are in this heaven, in this world, but His azamat and His greatness is in the hereafter. Meaning that you can, through these signs, and we mentioned in Dua Iftitah, the sun, the wind, the stars, these are all signs of His greatness. But in the akhirat and in the next world, we'll see the greatness of Allah without any barriers. The curtains will be removed and you'll see it fully. Ya man fil ardi ayatu. And as the Quran says, وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. And when Allah in the Day of Judgment, in the Quran it says He comes. What does it mean when Allah comes? We don't say He has a physical form or shape. Maybe we can say when you see the azamat and greatness of Allah come. When you see the greatness of Allah and you see the angels line by line by line, وَجِيءَ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِجَهَنَّمْ. And hell is brought forward. And then some of the narrations, it says that thousands of chains, they bring the hellfire, thousands and thousands, that if one of them were to break, it would engulf everybody. And they bring, in the verse of the Quran, hell is brought in front of us. And in this narration, it's interesting, it says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says here he stands while they're bringing hell towards us. And there he wants the intercession of his ummah before hell is brought for the people. يَوْمَئِذٍ يَتَذَكَّرُ الْإِنسَانِ. There man will remember. Then man will say, oh, this is Allah. This is the greatness of Allah. This is what we are created for. But the Quran says, وَأَنَّ لَهُ الذِّكْرَى. But it is too late. This remembrance has no benefit for you anymore. But what good to him will be the remembrance. So brothers and sisters, the greatness and magnificence of Allah is something that we will comprehend and see surely in the Qiyamah, in the Day of Judgment. But in this world, it's the day that we develop this understanding, developing this cognition of Allah and His greatness. And it's something that's done slowly and slowly. One of the great acts that Allah has given for us so that we can understand His greatness is salat. And we said that narration by Sayyida Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, that salat is a tanzi, it takes away kibr and takes away arrogance from you. So all these actions that we have in Islam, maybe the entire most important trait of Allah, the most important characteristic or sifat of Allah is this azumat, this greatness of Allah. And this is why we're in this world. One of it is to understand and comprehend this greatness. And to continue with what we said last night, we said that Imam Ali alayhi salam, from all his different attributes, from his courage to his sincerity, say being impressed, his sabr, his endurance, from all his different attributes that he has, the one and most important that, in my opinion, is one of his most important attributes is his greatness. And that he is the manifestation, he is the display of Allah's greatness. And that when we say, and it says by his name himself, Ali, which is high, which is great. And we see this is the one thing that is for Imam Ali that might not be for the other infallibles. That is the manifestation exactly of Allah's greatness. And the more we think about Imam Ali alayhi salam, and the more we think about this great sign of Allah, one of the greatest signs, or how he said, there's no greater sign than Allah than me, the more we'll reach Allah. So we do two things, my dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters. One is we understand the azumat and greatness of Allah through the specific instructions that God has given us as a slave. Second is we think about the azumat and greatness of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Again, we'll be understanding the greatness of Allah. One of the things that Imam Ali, it's for him and it is not for anybody else, is where was he born? He was born in the Kaaba. The Kaaba itself as a sign is the center of Hajj, which is one of the Sha'a'ir Allah, is one of the symbols of Allah. When everybody goes to Hajj, all of the mu'mineen, the Muslimin, they go to Hajj. The center of Hajj is, which is a display of Allah's greatness, is Kaaba, right? So with all those millions of people going to Hajj, there is a center. The center is Kaaba, and the Kaaba is the birthplace of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. So that itself is a sign of the greatness of Imam Ali, that his mother did not do dua as far as we know. She didn't do dua, allow me to have my kid be born in the Kaaba. Actually, we see that in some other stories, we see Maryam, Sayyidah Maryam, salamullah alayha, that she was in the masjid, she was in a holy place, and that Allah tells her to leave the holy place. Do not deliver your kid, even though Isa alayhi salam has such a high status and position. Allah tells Maryam to leave the holy place. But for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, his mother, Allah brings her and breaks open the Kaaba for her. So this is the greatness of Ali, because we said that narration that Isa alayhi salam, with all his miracles were from being humble to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Because he is the display of the greatness of Allah. And again, not to be confused, because some people might not have been here last night. Whenever we talk about Imam Ali, we're talking about the Prophet at the same time, because the Prophet of Islam is the teacher of Imam Ali. So when you praise a student, you're praising the teacher. And Imam Ali himself said, I am a slave of the servants of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Another thing that when we see about the greatness and manifestation, because we're talking about azumat and the greatness of Allah, and this is the one important attribute that a slave has to have. A slave has to view his Lord as ultimately great. Another is that Amir al-Mu'mineen would look at his life, and this is very sad, that maybe for 100 years he was cursed. He was cursed in the pulpits of the Bani Umayyah. See, the Bani Umayyah, or maybe different tyrants in history, they kill somebody, they let them go after he's dead. They don't curse them. But I ask you, my brothers and sisters, to think about this tonight. Why would they curse Imam Ali so much? Why would they have to curse him for 100 years? Maybe they would just curse him, just say after the Khawarij killed him. But for 100 years, they were trying to block the people and separate them. Because Imam Ali is a magnet. And we'll see is Ya'asub al-Mu'mineen. What is a Ya'asub? Some say is a bee, the queen bee is a Ya'asub. The queen bee, wherever you take this queen bee, the rest of the colony follows. He is the Ya'asub al-Mu'mineen. Wherever Imam Ali is, all of the Mu'mineen, all of the faithful will go wherever Imam Ali alayhi salam goes to. So to block this effect of Imam Ali, his greatness in attracting people, his love, they had to make sure that they cursed him. Because this is what the arrogant people do. Because when Imam Ali, which is one of the greatest signs of Allah, you come and you see how clear of a sign of Allah is. If you're arrogant, if you want to rebel against Allah, you will rebel against Imam Ali. If you want to be submissive to Allah, you'll be submissive to Imam Ali. That is one of his third things which I'll mention is that he is a test for the believers. If a person wants to see, is their faith true or not, see if they love Imam Ali. This is what Ibn Abbas, one of the great companions of the Prophet and commentators of the Quran, said when we wanted to see who's a hypocrite, who's not a hypocrite, it was a big deal. Imagine if I told you, say, Na'udhu Billah, in this masjid or in this community there is a hypocrite. Everybody would say, who is he? How do we find, who is it? He's an agent or he's a hypocrite or something. Imam Ali alayhi salam was the test to see who is a hypocrite and who wasn't. He said, whoever loved Imam Ali, we knew that he loved the Prophet truly. Whoever hated Imam Ali, we saw that he was a munafiq, a hypocrite. So he has that azumat and that greatness to him that he separates. He separates the heaven and hell. He separates the believer from the hypocrite. And he is the greatest sign of Allah. During death, which is when Allah's greatness, we said that that's when we start to see God's greatness. Either we had understood this greatness or not, it doesn't matter. In death, we will see it. It'll be too late then, but in death, we'll see it. And we read I think in Ajoshan and Kabir, Ya man fil mamati qudratu, that God's power is in death. When death happens, then you'll see Allah's power. Well, I'll tell you something else, brothers and sisters, that whoever dies will see Imam Ali alayhi salam at the same time. فَمَنْ يَمُوتْ يَرَنِي, he says in this narration. So when you die, you see God's greatness, but also when you die, you see Imam Ali. So you see this connection between the greatness of Allah and Imam Ali. In another narration, it says that من أحبني وجدني عند مماتي بحيث يحب. Whoever dies, Imam Ali says, I will see me. Whoever dies will see me in the way that they loved me. How did you love Imam Ali? You loved him as your compassionate father, your divine guide. You will see him in the same way. He will come and hug you and will protect you. Then the narration says this, وَمَنْ أبغضني وجدني عند مماته بحيث يكره. And whoever hated me will also see me during his death. But in the same way that he hated me, he will see me. He will see Imam Ali was at Dhul Faqar with his sword. So Imam Ali, his greatness, we said that Allah's greatness happens from death. And also Imam Ali alayhi salam, right when you die, you will see Imam Ali in the same way that you viewed him. Please recite a salawat. That is about death. Now let's talk about that is right when death happens. But how about right when we go into the Qiyamah in the Day of Judgment? In the Day of Judgment, Ya man fil qiyamati mulku, we say about the azamat and the greatness of God. Oh, he who in the Qiyamah and the Day of Judgment is his kingdomship. We see the reign and rule of Allah in the hereafter. Whoever wants to speak, Allah has to give them permission. We don't have free will anymore, right? Our free will is for here to sin or not to sin. There we're completely submissive to Allah. We're true slaves that day. And on that day, we said in the Qiyamah, when you see Allah's mulk, you see His kingdom, who is doing and administrating and controlling one of the most important affairs in the Qiyamah? I ask you. What is one of the most important things in the Day of Judgment? Who is going to go to heaven and who's going to go to hell? Right? So in the kingdom of Allah, Allah places again Imam Ali alayhi salam. And again, when I see these narrations, these are specific things that Allah has placed for Imam Ali. We never say that Imam Ali alayhi salam is higher than the Prophet. He is a student of the Prophet. He himself has said, I am a slave and servant of the Prophet. But Imam Ali is, according to both narrations from Shia and Sunni, is Qasimun Nar wal Jannah. He will separate people. Who's going to go to heaven? Who's going to go to hell? Let me read you a source, because sometimes people ask these sources, where are you reading from? I'm going to read this hadith from a source that's not from us. It's not from the followers of the Ahlul Bayt. This is a source from our Sunni brothers. This source is from the book, from the author, from the book Jawahir al-Aqdeen. And it says this, that it's interesting, this scholar brings this hadith from Imam Rida alayhi salam, that they ask, Abu Salt asks Imam Rida alayhi salam, and Imam Rida alayhi salam answers and says that about Imam Ali, the Prophet has says, Anta qasimul jannah wan nar, that the messenger says, Ali, you are the separator of the heaven and the hell. فَيَقُومُ الْقِيَامَةِ فَيَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ تَقُولُ لِلنَّارِ. You will say, Ali, you will say to the fire, هَذَا لِي وَهَذَا لَكَ. You will tell the fire, this one's for me, this is a believer, this is a follower of Amir al-Mu'mineen, وَهَذَا لَكَ. And this person is for you. So he will choose who's going to go to heaven and who will go to hell. And this again is another comparison of the greatness of Imam Ali alayhi salam in relation to his status. One of the other things that Imam Ali alayhi salam he does is his love purifies us. His belief and his love also, what does it do? It separates heaven and hell, and also it separates a true person that believes in Allah and the Day of Judgment and Risalat, and also a person that is a hypocrite. His love also separates as a good test to see who truly has faith and who doesn't. There's this famous narration that both Shia and Sunnis we all agree upon, that the Prophet said, لا يحبك إلا مؤمن ولا يبغضك إلا المنافق إلا منافقين. That nobody loves you, Ali, that is a believer, and nobody hates you or detests you unless is a hypocrite. This is a narration that are in both our sources. Because Imam Ali alayhi salam, as we said, the way is a sign of Allah, that in such a way that when you see the sign, if you aren't truly humble to Allah, you will not be humble towards Imam Ali, because he's a clear sign. If you have any type of kibr and arrogance towards you cannot submit to Imam Ali. By that you're submitting to Allah. Right? In another narration, we read, and this love of Imam Ali alayhi salam, before I say this narration, this love is something that we develop. As I said, the azamat and the greatness of Allah, we develop through our salat, we develop through practicing. When we say Allahu Akbar, we're testifying to His kibriya and His greatness. When we go into ruku, we say that basically He goes into His highness, A'la. When we go into sujood, you go into His azim, which is His azamat. So salat itself, some action that we're doing over and over, 5 times a day, over and over. So one time I was at a center and they were asking, why do we repeat these things in salat over and over? Isn't it repetitive? And I said, the reason is you're being trained, you're developing, you're practicing. You're saying, Iyaka na'budu, say, wa iyaka nasta'in. I only seek help, I only worship you, I only seek help from you so much so that it can be instilled in your heart and you can act upon it. You say Allahu Akbar so many times over and over so that this kibriya and this azamat of Allah, maybe after so many years, it will go into your heart. So one of the greatest actions we have is salat, and this salat itself is a training for us, is developing us, being humble towards Allah over and over. By we go into ruku, we talk about the azamat of Allah, we talk about the greatness, and then we go out from ruku, we say Allahu Akbar again, His kibriya and His greatness. And also the love of Imam Ali, also we develop his love over and over by reading stories about him, by reading different things about his life. That we said that last night, that if George Jardar, the great, an important scholar, says that if Allah took away all our blessings but gave us another Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, it would be worth it. So this love that we have for Imam Ali by reading stories, by reading history, by reading his fadail and virtues. And one of the greatest times to do this, to study about Imam Ali, to understand Imam Ali, and to understand Allah, is in the month of Ramadan. This month is a month that your spirit is cleansed, and you can understand things that maybe in other months might be difficult. Because of our sins, we might reject. Those that have gone to Hajj or have gone to Ziyarat, they know. When you go to Hajj or Ziyarat, you see that things are much different. You see Allah in a way that you never saw Him before, because it's that place that you're at when you go to Ziyarat, when you go to Hajj. Also in the month of Ramadan, in the nights of Qadr, maybe last night or inshallah tomorrow night, you will understand Allah in a way that you didn't understand Him before. Because this knowledge that we have a person has to be purified first to be able to take this knowledge, or else it'll be too heavy for them, right? One of the great philosophers, Mullah Sadra, when he had questions in philosophy and he couldn't answer, he was one of the greatest philosophers, Muslim philosophers. Who else could he ask? He had to resolve the issues himself. They say when he was in Kahak, which is an area a little bit separated from Qom, he would walk in he would come all the way to the shrine of Hazrat Ma'sooma, Lady Bibi Ma'sooma, Salamullah alayha, and there curtains would be open for him. In terms of philosophy and what he was thinking about there, it would be open and he would understand things that he couldn't understand while he was in Kahak. Some of the other ulamas, I know mufassirin of Quran, commentators of the Quran, they say that when we leave the city of Qom and we go to our own villages or our own cities in the summer, those difficult studies that we have, we can't understand it as well. So in this month, in the nights of Shahr Ramadan, it's very good to talk about these topics that might be difficult or hard for us. Because when the Prophet came, as the Quran says, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ النَّاسِ, He purified them first according to some of the narrations, and then He taught them. Some of the verses say first He taught, then He purified, and some of the verses of the Quran say He purified them, then He taught them. So Islamic knowledge and ma'rifat and understanding, which is not just from the books, right? It is an understanding that goes into your spirit, is done with purification. So these nights of the month of Ramadan, take it very seriously, especially the nights of Qadr, which is the heart of Ramadan. You will see things, inshallah, you will understand things that will be much, much difficult other times in the year. One of these is the greatness of Allah, which is important for a slave, and also the greatness and azamat of Imam Ali alayhi salam. I'm going to finish tonight with this hadith and a story for you. One of the great companions of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Sahl ibn Hunayf al-Ansari, this is a saying 111 in Nahj al-Balagha. For those that, because it's easy to maybe remember 111. Imam Ali is our first Imam, so 111. You can remember this, and this is according to the sequence that's in English. And this is the Nahj al-Balagha that's in English. It says this narration that when he died, this Sahl ibn Hunayf al-Ansari died in the Battle of Siffin. He very much loved Imam Ali alayhi salam. And on that occasion, Imam Ali says something that many of the commentators of Nahj al-Balagha started giving different commentary, tafsirs and different interpretations to what is meant by this sentence. Imam Ali alayhi salam said after he became martyred, his great companion, he said something, لَوْ أَحَبَّنِي جَبَلٌ لَتَحَافَتْ. What does it mean? It means that even if a mountain had loved me, it would have crumbled down. Even if a mountain had loved me, it would have crumbled down. So the Mufassirin and Sayyid Radi, who is the compiler of Nahj al-Balagha, gives his own opinion about what this means. And one of the first commentaries that they give on this, what does it mean that a mountain crumbles down with the love of Imam Ali? They say that the love of Imam Ali is so strong, it is a test, that when a believer truly loves Imam Ali, truly follows him, he starts getting the bala and calamities of the prophets and imams. The same way that the prophets and imam had calamities, they're going to have calamities and they're going to either be killed or something really bad is going to happen to them. They will be crumbled down like a mountain. That is one interpretation. I saw another commentary of Nahj al-Balagha, and it is by this Muhaqqiq Khoui, not Ayatollah al-Uzma Khoui, the faqih, the jurist. This is another great scholar, this another from the same village. It's called Khoui. They're both from Azerbaijan and Iran. And he says this. He says this narration means this. It means لو أحبني جبل لتخافت. If a mountain loved me, Imam Ali says, it would have crumbled. He said that this is the love of Imam Ali, that it would melt the heart. Once this heart is melted, the entire body would be melted and crumbled and crushed down. It would reach fana. It would reach as if it's nothing compared to Allah. It reaches the fana of Allah with the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So this is another interpretation that if the love of Imam Ali is so great, if it went on a mountain and we don't have that love, is something we ask Imam Ali for. We ask Sayyida Fatima, salamullah, we ask the Prophet for. Give us true love of Imam Ali. Because if this true love were to happen, it would melt you. It would inflame your heart. Your heart would be full with the love of Imam Ali, and your body, yourself would crumble, and you would be a true slave and servant of Allah. One of the great, and this is the story that we'd like to end, one of the great scholars that we had is Allameh Majlisi. I'm sure you've heard his name, right? Allameh Muhammad Baqir Majlisi. He's buried in Isfahan, and he is the compiler of the great book Bihar al-Anwar, which is about 110 volumes. He tried to compile all the narrations. He had a great father by the name of Muhammad Taqi Majlisi. So there's Muhammad Baqir Majlisi, which is Allameh. His father was Muhammad Taqi Majlisi, which was a great alim and a great wayfarer, Sayyid Suluk, and that he would reach Allah. And they say that he had such a great dua that he did dua for Allameh Majlisi to be born, and his son became Allameh Majlisi, the great. In some of the books, if you look at it, maybe they say is the most powerful and most distinguished Shia scholar ever, Allameh Majlisi. So this father of Allameh Majlisi, and some say is more learned in terms of as a jurist than his son, Muhammad Taqi Majlisi. When he went to Najaf, I believe he went from Isfahan because they're buried in Isfahan. When he went to Najaf, he put down his luggage, as the story says, and he wanted to go and do the ziyarat of Imam Ali alayhi salam. The story I'm sharing with you is to show the greatness of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he said, okay, what do you do when you go for ziyarat? You take the ghusl, you take the shower, you read izn al-dukhul, permission to enter. When he's going to enter, he says, I can't enter the haram. You feel this, those that have been to Najaf, you feel this greatness about the haram of Imam Ali. It's too high for me to enter. So he said, let me go to Wadi al-Salam, one of the cemeteries. There's, I believe, 2 prophets are buried there, and there's the shrine, so there's the grave of the mu'mineen there. It's one of the biggest cemeteries in the world. He said, let me go there in Wadi al-Salam. He went there, then he came back. For 1 week, they say, he went to Wadi al-Salam and came back and said, no, I can't. I cannot enter the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen. It's too great. This azamat, its greatness is too much. They say finally he entered the courtyard and would cry in the courtyard, but when we came to enter the rawaq, he couldn't. And again, he says, too difficult. Until he went to sleep. When he went to sleep, the story goes like this. It says that he had a dream. He sees that he is in Samarra, which Imams are buried in Samarra. Imam Hadi and Imam Hassan Askari, and also is the home of Imam Mahdi. He sees the Imam of the age in his dream and asks him, is Ziyarat Jame Kabira, one of the great ziyarats, is it from you? Is it from you, the Ahlul Bayt? And the Imam in the dream says, yes, it is from us. Then he wakes up. And then he says, I'm going to go to Samarra. So he starts going to Samarra, and just how his dream, that the same way he was going, it was the exact same thing, like a deja vu. He would see exactly the same thing until he gets to Samarra and he meets the Imam of the age. Remember, brothers and sisters, that this scholar who lived, say, 400 years ago, 300 years ago, it's our sins that have blocked us from meeting and seeing the Imam of the age. True, he doesn't have a specific representative right now. This is the major occultation. But there are very many occurrences in different books of pure people being able to see the Imam. And it's not that he is hidden from us in the narration that I read, it's we are hidden from him. So this pure scholar, Muhammad Taqi Majlisi, meets the Imam. And there he says to them this. He says that, is Ziyarah Jami Kabira for you? He says, yes. The Imam says, yes, it is from us. Then he says, do I have permission to enter the shrine of your grandfather Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam? Then he says, yes. He says, now you do. Now you have permission. And he goes back to Najaf and enters the shrine of Imam Ali alayhi salam. This story has the moral of this story is the greatness and the reality of the shrine of Imam Ali, that Adam and Nuh are there. When somebody wants to enter, you have to realize how great the shrine is. When I give you this story, it doesn't mean that people like us should not enter the shrine. Do not try to practice the story and wait for a dream or something. Enter the shrine. But those that are the wayfarers, those that are in the suluk and path and pure, this is the way they see the greatness of Imam Ali. And to also add to this, look at the narrations about how great it is to do salat in the haram of Imam Ali. Compare it to other places. How great is it just to spend one night in Najaf, in the narrations. You see the greatness of Allah. We'd like to give a salam to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. If we can dim the lights a little bit. And as I said, understanding Imam Ali, it takes purity. Knowledge in Islam, you need purity. And that knowledge will become ma'rifat and true understanding. Without purity, it's going to be a hijab for us. It will be a barrier for us. Imam Ali alayhi salam, we said, had this trait or this characteristic of being very great. Also, he has this infinite greatness. Also, we have this other attribute of Imam Ali that he has is ultimate kindness. How he was very great, he was also very kind. So to keep that together, don't view Amir al-Mu'mineen as somebody that you only see his greatness. Also, when you think of Imam Ali, think of his rahmah and mercy. And I'm going to mention how kind Imam Ali alayhi salam was, while at the same time being so great. When Ibn Muljam hit Imam Ali and struck Imam Ali in the head while he was in prostration, when he's coming up from prostration, Imam Ali, right afterwards, says, with a weak and broken voice, he was hit with a poisoned sword. And with ra'fa and rahma, it says in this narration from Bihar al-Anwar of Allama Majlisi, with kindness and mercy, he talks this way. Ya hada, you have laqad ja'ta adhima. You have done something, a great crime. He has done the worst crime in humanity. وَارْتَكَبْتَ أَمْرًا عَظِيمًا وَخَطْبًا جَسِيمًا. You've done a great crime. Then he says this out of his compassion. أَبِئْسَ الْإِمَامْ كُنْتُ لَكَ حَتَّى جَازَيْتَنِي. Was I a bad imam for you that you were going to punish me? Was I a bad imam for you? Was I not kind to you? Was I not good to you? When I chose you over others, he was kind to Ibn Muljam before. وَقَدْ كُنْتَ أَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ قَاتِلِي. And I knew that you were going to kill me, but I was still kind to you. He did different favors to Ibn Muljam. There he tells Imam Hassan alayhi salam something that truly shows his compassion. Imagine if we were hit by somebody, somebody tried to kill us or murder us, how quickly we would like to get revenge. There he says to Imam Hassan, أُرْفُقْ يَا وَلَدِي بِأَسِيرِكَ. وَارْحَمْهُ. Be kind to your captive, be kind to this prisoner, and be merciful to him. وَأَحْسِنْ إِلَيْهِ. Be kind to him. وَاشْفِقْ عَلَيْهِ. أَلَا تَرَى إِلَى عَيْنَيْهِ قَدْ تَرَاتَهَا عَيْنَيْ قَدْ تَرَاتَا فِي أُمِّ رَأْسِهِ وَقَلْبُهُ يَرْجُفُ خَوْفًا وَرُعْبًا وَفَزَعًا. Don't you look at his eyes, the way his eyes are trembling? Don't you look at his heart, the way his heart is trembling? He's afraid. Be kind to this captive. This is the kindness of Amir al-Mu'mineen to his killer, that he says, be careful of him. And in the different other narrations, it says, also give him the same milk that they came to give to Imam Ali. He says, give it also to my killer. This is the miracle of Imam Ali with his greatness and also with his ultimate kindness. Ya Ali, we ask you, you overlooked the sin, the great sin of Ibn Muljam. You saw his fear. Right now, overlook our sins and see the way that we plead. We plead to you in the nights of the month of Ramadan that with your love and because of your honor, inshallah, we ask you to overlook our sins and to answer our prayers. And one of them is to free us from the hellfire. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.